It has been a while since we last went to our last national park unit. That was actually Big Thicket National Preserve back in October last year. So in this video, we're going to catch you up on what we've been up to since then.
In the beginning of October, we attended Albuquerque Balloon Fiesta for our third year in a row. And quickly after that, we headed to Texas and then New Orleans.
That's right, my parents were coming over to visit, and after a bit of a missed start where their flight had been delayed and then cancelled, we eventually managed to rendezvous with them in a hotel in New Orleans. We'd left the RV back in Livingston. We spent, what was it, about 5 days or so, I guess, with my parents over in New Orleans, which was super cool. And that's where we visited some of the national park units in New Orleans. And then we headed back towards Livingston, Texas, and that's where we visited Big Thicket National Preserve. From there, though, we decided that they should really get an idea of what our lifestyle is like. So we drove with them over to Austin, where they picked up a rental RV and joined us on the road for about another 5 days, just outside of Fredericksburg. Over in Texas. And that was super good fun.
Yeah.
I think for them it was a real kind of eye-opener as to what RV life is like. And obviously when you are in a rented RV, it's a little bit different. It's more like you're there temporarily. You don't have a chance to really make it your own. But we used our RV as kind of the main gathering space, and we cooked meals in there and things. So that was pretty cool.
While we were in the hill country, one of the things we did was yoga with goats. So me and Matt's mom did it, and the guys went and did barbecue.
We got barbecue, yeah. My dad and I went off into town and got some barbecue, which was good fun as well.
But I think they missed out because yoga with baby goats was super, super fun. Oh, my hair. Don't do that. Don't do that.
So after exploring hill country with them, we headed over to San Antonio. We put ourselves in a KOA in the RV, and they stayed in a hotel in the city. And we spent some time exploring. And although we were only there for a few days, we were there over Halloween.
Yeah, Halloween.
And somehow we had timed this perfectly. We didn't know this was going to happen, but it was the Day of the Dead celebrations in San Antonio. The first time they've ever really done it as a big festival. And it was actually the production crew who did it for the James Bond movie a few years ago. They've done it at various cities, I think, around the world.
Yeah.
And eventually this guy was like, well, wait a minute, I'm from San Antonio. Why don't we go back there and do it? So this was the first time they'd ever done this in San Antonio, and they had all the floats going down the river and things. It was really cool to see and to be a part of. So we really enjoyed that. And then after San Antonio, the last trip with my parents was up to Austin. And again, we stayed at an RV park just outside of the city, and they stayed in an apartment hotel thing in the city as well. And we had a lot of fun just exploring the city and wandering around and seeing some of the history and things. So yeah, that was really good fun as well. We had a great time there. And then they flew back, was it like November 7th, 8th,
yeah.
Something like that. After dropping my parents off at the airport, we actually headed back down towards San Antonio, where we stayed at an RV park with our friends Phil and Stacy from You, Me in the RV. And we were there, what, 5 days or so?
5 days.
Over my birthday, which was great fun.
And they surprised Matt with some chocolate cupcakes. And then we also went to a cooking class together to learn some Italian cooking.
Which was super good fun. We had such a laugh there, and it was great to see them both again. We'd stayed in contact regularly, kind of online and things, but we hadn't seen them for quite a long time. So it was great to catch up again.
And we made a cameo in their video, so we'll link that video in the description below.
So after spending a few days with Phil and Stacy, we headed back over to Fredericksburg to stay in the Jellystone RV Park, where there was another event happening.
And that was a meetup organized by Heath and Alyssa, who organized the RV Entrepreneur Summit. We met them, we went a couple years ago to the RV Entrepreneur Summit that they put up in, that year was in Fredericksburg, Texas. And this year they put up a meetup in Fredericksburg, Texas. And it coincided with the premiere of the RVers TV show.
So by this time it was about mid-November, and we decided to leave the heat of Texas and start heading west and north. So we headed up via Las Cruces, where we stopped for, it was about a week or so, I guess, at the Sierra Vista boondocking spot that we've been to before and we love. and then we carried on north up to Albuquerque, New Mexico.
That was because friends of ours invited us to spend Thanksgiving with them in Albuquerque with their family.
And that was super cool. Literally as well, it was really cold. It got down to into the 20s.
And it snowed a little bit.
Yeah, we arrived and it was dry, but that evening it started snowing. The next morning I was clearing snow off the solar panels, and it was really windy and really cold there.
Yeah.
And we were just mooch-docking, dry camping with no hookups. So yeah, that was pretty chilly. We stayed there, what was it, about 3 or 4 days?
Yep. And that was the chance where we finally get to try Matt's British Christmas cake.
Christmas pudding, yeah.
Christmas pudding.
So Christmas pudding, like I just cannot find this meal or this dish, I guess, anywhere here in the US. So eventually I resigned myself to making my own, and it's kind of like a cake, like a real heavy fruit cake style thing.
But it takes a couple months to make.
Yes, so I'd made this like weeks and weeks and weeks before, and I'd actually made 2, one for Thanksgiving and then one for us to have at Christmas as well. And it turned out okay. I was pretty pleased. As a first effort, it worked out okay.
So then after that, so this is end of November, and we had been with people since the start of the balloon fiesta. So that's pretty much 2 months nonstop with people, and we're both introverts, so it was time to take a little bit of break. Also, the schedule had been so busy, we didn't have much time to actually work and edit our videos, because when we're with our friends, or when Matt's parents were visiting, we really prioritize that time to spend with them, because they don't have such a long time to spend with us.
And you want to make the most of that time with people, and we really enjoyed it. We just needed a bit of a break and just some time to catch up on work.
Yeah, so we kind of decided that for the winter we will kind of slow down our traveling a little bit more and really focus on catching up with video editing, because we had a long backlog of footage filmed that we hadn't gotten to the edit. So we kind of got into this routine of like staying in one place for 10 days or so, boondocking, and pretty much working every day.
And it was nice because we were moving back through an area where we had been before. We'd actually been there roughly the same time last year. So we knew kind of some of the spots that we'd been to that were good. They had good cell signal, that they were quiet, and we could just kind of be on our own there. So that worked really well for a good few weeks, didn't it? Yeah,
so some of those spots were near Silver City.
Yep.
Stayed there. And then near Tucson. Stayed there for a little while. And then as it was leading on to Christmas, we decided to treat ourselves and stay in an RV park for a week.
Yes, we did this last year as well, and although we like the openness of the outdoors and being sort of in nature, it's kind of nice when you're doing that much cooking and things, just to have like utilities, just to have running water and sewer and things.
Plus, it's not just any regular cooking, it's Christmas cooking, and Matt is from UK, I'm from Latvia. We have slightly different traditions of what we eat for Christmas, so we can't just compromise. So we have to make British Christmas and Latvian Christmas meals.
And it actually works really well, because in Latvia you tend to celebrate Christmas more on Christmas Eve, whereas in the UK we celebrate more on Christmas Day. So we just do both. It kind of makes sense. But no, we made good use of our time over Christmas. We stayed at the Rover's Roost Xscapers Co-op RV park near Casa Grande in New Mexico. In Arizona. And since we were fairly near to Phoenix as well, we did do a couple of day trips up into Phoenix to go and sort of just run some errands and use the bigger stores and things up there that we hadn't seen for a long time. So that worked out really well over Christmas. And we stayed there right up until December 30th, didn't we? Which was when we left RV parks. And actually, as of filming this right now, we haven't been to an RV park since then. It's now 20th of April, and we have not been to an RV park since the 30th of December last year. So we haven't been into an RV park for a long time, and if you haven't seen it already, check out our blog post on 100 days of boondocking to see how we managed it and why. But we left Casa Grande RV Park on the 30th of December to head here to Quartzsite, actually, for the Xscapers New Year's Eve event.
That was our second year in a row attending, and I mean, it's been an amazing year of attending convergences and meeting people at that first event and an annual bash, and keeping in touch with them and camping throughout the year with them in different locations. So we were very happy to be back and experience the New Year's Eve again.
And it was crazy just to think that 12 months prior to that, we didn't know about Xscapers. We'd heard of it, but we didn't know anyone from it. We hadn't been to any events. And some of the friendships that we had formed 12 months prior have just been so pivotal to our journey, and we've made some great contacts all around the country. And it's an amazing community of people. So we were super pleased to see people again, and some that we hadn't seen for 12 months. So we were here for the New Year's Eve event. And then in early January, we moved about 50 miles up the road to Lake Havasu City, which is where the Xscapers annual bash was. Yep. And not only were we there as attendees, but we also had a couple of kind of cool little gigs going on while we were there, didn't we?
Yeah, those are first time we were hired to do video production and editing as well. So that was really nice.
So we helped out Dometic and Battleborn doing an install on the Dometic fifth wheel trailer. Diana and I were filming it, and I also ended up getting involved hands-on on some of the install as well, because I can't resist. And that was super good fun. We had a lot of fun with that. And not only that, I was also speaking at the event as well.
Yeah.
So I gave a presentation on RV electrical upgrades. We've put that on YouTube, so we'll drop a link in the description below if you haven't seen that one already. It's well worth checking out. We aimed it, or I kind of try to think of it as the RV electrical presentation for people who don't do RV electrical presentations. It's lighthearted, it's kind of really addressing the basics, so well worth checking out.
I might be biased, but I think he did a good job. So we still were in this mood of trying to get things done now throughout the new year and the annual bash. Again, it's not really a place where we can get any work done, but our plans got thwarted again. We were invited to attend a Dometic in the Desert event in beginning of February in Tucson. So I wasn't too far from Quartzsite, so we went along.
Yeah, and prior to that, we didn't think we were going to be able to attend. We'd heard about it a little while before, but we thought our plans were going to take us off into California. But as things turned out, we actually found that we were able to make it. Yeah. So we slowly made our way back over to Tucson. So we were there by early February. And we had a great time there, again, meeting some of our friends that we hadn't seen for a long time, which we really enjoyed doing. But also just meeting a lot of people from the industry, showing them our RV. We spent, 2 or 3 days just doing rig tours, just showing lots and lots of people some of the upgrades and the mods that we've done to our RV. And hopefully we'll see some of those start to move into more mainstream RVs as well, which would be really cool to see.
And if you want to get a little bit of glimpse of that, we actually met Mike and Jen from RV Lifestyle, and they interviewed us for their channel and also showed a little bit of glimpse of our RV tour on another video they did about the Dometic in the Desert. So we'll link those videos in the description as well.
So after Dometic in the Desert finished around about mid-February, we really had no plans in the calendar until the next event, the Xscapers Convergence in Bishop, California in early April. So we decided just to slowly start making our way west from Tucson up towards Bishop, California. But along the way, we were going to drop in and spend about a week or so in the Bay Area to catch up with a load of friends that we really haven't seen since we hit the road in July 2018.
So we made our way slowly back from Tucson. We boondocked near Phoenix area in a couple different spots, and then we were back in Quartzsite now at beginning of the March. And dates aligned, and actually we had a few friends visit us and camp with us. These are non-RVer friends. I think this is the first time when, except my brother, it was the first time non-RVer friends came and camped with us. So that was super fun for them to, I guess, see our RV lifestyle.
It was a bit of a shame that the weather didn't really work out for when they came to visit. Normally it's like this, it's blue skies and sunny, and had been for weeks prior. But unfortunately, it rained quite a bit while they were staying with us. So they cut their trip short by a day, which in hindsight was a great decision, because that day it just decided the heavens just opened and there was just torrential rain all day long. But since then, it's been actually quite nice weather again. So it's always the way, I guess.
So by now it is about mid-March, and we were about ready to go and head into California towards San Francisco. But that's when really the pandemic started to explode, and San Francisco issued stay-at-home order. So we decided we will not go to San Francisco. We are safer out here in the desert where there is barely anyone around. So we decided to shelter in place here in the desert. We are from Europe. We don't have any family in the United States, so we don't really have home to go to. So we decided that was the best option for us.
And a lot of our friends, full-time RVer friends at the time, were really worried about where they could go as well. I think for a lot of people, they were stuck in places where it wasn't necessarily they intended to be for a long time. They were traveling through areas, and they really had to start making decisions where they wanted to spend the next few months. People who were used to boondocking and moving kind of every few days suddenly realized that probably wasn't going to be the safest thing to do. And with more and more shelter-in-place orders and lockdowns coming into effect, there was just a huge degree of uncertainty. Where we are right now around Quartzsite, we felt fairly safe. We're good off-grid for 10 days or so at a time, and that's what we'd actually spent the last few months doing. So we decided that our safest option was to stay boondocking, stay in the middle of nowhere where there were other people not around, and if the situation changed and that didn't become viable, we would just have to hope that we could still find an RV park or something that we could drop into and get ourselves into one place for a prolonged period. But we decided to take the opportunity to see how long can we stay off-grid at a time. Now, public lands have typically a stay limit of 14 days. You are not allowed to stay in one place for 14 days, for more than 14 days. And after that time is up, you have to move out of the area, usually 25 miles or so away, before you can then return 14 days later at a minimum. So we decided to see, could we start doing 14 days between a couple of different spots that were sufficient distance away that we were then not exceeding that stay limit. And so that's what we've been doing since then. Yeah. For the first time ever, a month or so ago, we did 14 days in one spot, and we've done that now a couple of times since, and it's actually worked out really well for us.
So the only time we interacted with humans was when we were dumping, and actually not even dumping, but only when getting the propane, and that has been only once. And then, so we had to dump every 2 weeks, but actually grocery shopping, we've been shopping only once a month.
So even though we were just grocery shopping once a month or so, we actually found that we could stock up far more food than that in the RV if we needed to. Because we cook from fresh ingredients a lot in the RV, we're actually very able to cook good meals from pantry, cupboard items and things. Plus, we've become like Tetris experts when it comes to packing the fridge and the freezer.
Yeah.
We've done a blog post about that recently, and that is well worth checking out. We'll pop a link in the description below for that one.
As we mentioned before, our plan was to go to Xscapers Convergence in Bishop, California. That was going to be in beginning of April. That was canceled. Then we had plans to go to East Coast to attend my 10-year college reunion in mid-May. That was canceled again. Then, since we were on the East Coast, we were planning to go to Europe to visit our family and do some traveling over in Europe. Right now, it doesn't look like we'll be able to go, at least on the days that we were planning to go.
And we were planning like a 6 to 8 week kind of trip out there, traveling through maybe as many as like a dozen countries, but trying to spend a good amount of time in Italy in particular. So you can see why those plans, we had to cancel them. Fortunately, we hadn't booked anything.
Yeah.
We were still kind of in the planning stages, but that is all on hold until the situation improves.
So our plans for rest of the year are basically cancelled.
However, we've also decided that we can't stay here in the desert for too much longer. Already in mid-April, the temperatures each day are well into the 80s, and there's been a good kind of breeze blowing through, and actually quite a strong wind at times blowing through, which has made it somewhat bearable to be here, so we haven't struggled too much. But in the next few days, the temperatures are due to get well into the 90s. And when we're off-grid like this, we cannot run the AC for very long at all, maybe a couple hours at most on our batteries, which really means that it's not going to be safe and sustainable to stay here for too much longer. Temperatures around here in summer are going to be well in excess of 100 degrees regularly, and it's just not a place that we want to be. So since we cannot stay around here much longer, we've actually been able to find a friend with some private land where we can go and shelter in place for the next couple of months at least, until hopefully the situation improves. That is, however, a long way further north. So we have a pretty mammoth journey planned in a few days' time.
See you in the next video. That cyclist there is distracting me.
Well, stop looking at the cyclist, look at the camera.